Uh, all right, so now we have selected the walls that we want to include. We're now going to take the next step, which is modify the dimensions or model dimensions that we want. I don't want to model this whole thing. There's a whole bunch of rubbish here. So I can zoom in on the area that I want to model. I want to model what's inside this dashed line, just inside this dashed line here. That area would be sufficient for me. And actually, if you look at the drawing closely, if I zoom in here, you'll see that it's got eastings and uh, northings. And the northings are 485 to 300, which is 185. And the eastings are 480 to 706, which is 226. So that's the vertical dimension, yeah? So it's 226 in the vertical dimension, and it's 185 in the width dimension, yeah? In the horizontal dimension. I'm going to use a cell count of 500 by 500. And this should be enough to capture the resolution that I want. It's 0.37 per cell, apply and close. And we're ready to start the simulation. We just need to place an ignition point. I'm going to place an ignition point here. And I can edit the ignition point by right-clicking the ignition point. So again, I can delete this ignition point. I could just click on it, hover above it. While hovering above it, just hit escape and we'll click and we'll delete it. So right click, place ignition point, place it where you want it to sit. Edit the ignition point. You can edit the composition. I'm going to make this 90% methane and 10% C2 and nothing. Be sure to press enter so that okay. You can also override the volume blockage ratio. It'll read it from the drawing, but if the gas cloud is sitting in an area where the information is not correct, and you happen to know what the volume blockage ratio is, you can override it. I'm making up a fictitious sort of congested area here just for the purpose of my simulation. Actually, it was a planned congested area. And so the stuff isn't on the plot plan, but that's fine. Then I'm going to place a custom gas cloud over here. So this is the custom gas cloud that I've placed, and we're ready to go. I'm ready to run the simulation, and that's in fact what we will do right now by hitting perform analysis. And you'll see it says processing, and the window it will create an input file for the SU2 software and transfer that input file to the SU2 software, and SU2 will be called, and it will run for a few minutes, and then when it's done, it will call ParaView, and you can look at the results, and that will be the next step. Selected.